What if the others brought dragons back to the world of Westeros?
Mm.
What if what we thought we knew about the dragons returning and causing magic to come back into the world was completely wrong and we had it reversed this whole time?
Okay.
Everyone knows the story of how the dragons came back and how Dany hatched her dragons, right?
Yeah.
And we think we know that Dany bringing her dragons back caused magic to return into the world, and for all of this magical phenomena we see in the world of Westeros to happen. But what if the others returning was what caused this all to happen in the first place? Because before we ever even see Dany
Yeah.
in the books, what's the first thing we see happen in the Game of Thrones book, in the first Game of Thrones?
Well, we have the prologue and we see the others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The story literally starts with the return of the White Walkers.
Yeah.
We have the Night's Watch ranging beyond the wall,
Yeah.
and we have this epic showdown
Mm-hmm.
between Waymar Royce
Yeah.
and this White Walker.
Yeah.
And it starts with this feeling of doom,
Mm-hmm.
this terrifying threat we have beyond the wall.
Yeah.
This is the first thing we see, and of course, we don't see the dragons
No.
until the very end of
Yeah.
the first book. That's what we end the first book with. And I think this is a very important detail because we start with the White Walkers,
Yeah.
but we end with dragons coming back into the world.
Yeah. You began with ice and you ended with fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, even if you look into the title, Ice, the Song of Ice and Fire,
Mm-hmm.
ice comes before fire.
Yeah.
And I don't think anything George R. R. Martin has done is by accident.
Yeah.
I think all of this has a meaning. Um, so I'm saying, what if their return is what brought this magic back into the world and
Right.
allowed the White Walkers, you know, or the White Walkers, brought magic back into this world and allowed dragons to be brought back into the world.
Right. Because people think it's the dragons that are just the pure magic, and the reason why that
Absolutely.
magic thrives now in Westeros and across the
Absolutely.
world.
And I feel like this has been thrown in our face. This is shoved right
Yeah.
in front of us, that dragons are this magic and
Yeah.
they are what caused the White
Especially
Walkers
with
to return.
House of the Dragon too. Like that's solely based off of just dragons. There's no White Walkers in that show, so the that theory could be like more proof for that it's just the
100%.
dragons. But what did come first though? It was the Long Night and the White Walkers
And
with their
100%,
magic
cuz
first.
if you go absolutely, if you go way back, the White Walkers were around way before
Way
we have
before.
any mention of dragons. Even
Yeah.
before potentially the old
Yeah.
Valyrians had dragons. We don't really know.
Yeah.
Um Before we dive more into this theory, we
Mm-hmm.
need to establish the base theory and the counter argument to the theory.
Okay.
And that begins with Quaithe.
With Quaithe, yes. So Quaithe, we meet Quaithe in the Clash of Kings
Yes,
and with Dany, and she insinuates to us that dragons brought magic back into the world
absolutely.
because that they are fire made flesh, and fire is magic. So Quaithe is telling us that magic is basically like dragons bring the magic.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. And I think 100% that's the strongest counter argument to
Mm-hmm.
our theory right here
Yeah.
is Quaithe is literally telling us that dragons are fire. Like fire is magic
Yeah.
and dragons are fire made flesh.
Yes.
She also tells another story of a fire mage, right?
Yeah. She tells us like there was a fire mage who could barely wake fire from dragon glass
Mm-hmm.
6 months before 6 months earlier. and then she becomes way more powerful after the dragon eggs are born,
Right.
or the dragon eggs are hatched.
And this is really, I feel like, our first inclination of, these dragons
Yeah,
have consequences far beyond what we just see with Danny.
yeah,
And she even says, what does that have to do with me? How am I causing all of this? And she says, well, you are the mother of dragons, are you not?
mm-hmm.
And I think this is her saying, without actually saying, your dragons are causing all of this magical phenomena to happen throughout the world, not just in Essos, but all throughout the world.
Yes.
And I feel like there's been an established theory that the dragons are also causing this in the far north, with the resurgence of the White Walkers,
Yes.
But what if Quaithe isn't really right? What if she had it wrong?
Yes.
And
And she's very mysterious.
she is.
But she's very knowledgeable
Mm-hmm.
with her character. Like, we see her throughout the books. She pops up with Danny
Yeah.
in her. I don't know how she does it, but she pops up. Like, is it in her dreams, or is it? She actually projecting herself?
Yeah.
There?
So she first appears to her in Vase Teloro.
Yes.
When she's approaching Karth through the wasteland.
Yeah.
And she, Zaro, Pyat Pri, and Quaithe all come to her because they want to see her dragons.
Yeah.
And Quaithe gives her almost this like cryptic information of, she says, all men who see your dragons will desire them. So we know that Quaithe has this knowledge of the future and of things that she might not really have any business knowing, but does.
Yeah.
So of course you hear Quaithe say something, and you want to believe her.
Yeah.
And of course we see the dragons appear, and we start seeing more magical phenomena happen.
Mm-hmm.
With just different things throughout the realm. But the most in our face thing was with the fire mage.
Yeah.
But are we sure that dragons began this process? Because let's zoom out and look at the White Walkers as a whole. They aren't simply another species. They are ancient supernatural beings.
Yeah.
With powers that we don't quite understand. They have extremely powerful magic, obviously. They wear armor that basically blends into the forest.
Yep.
They wield magical weapons that almost turn invisible when faced on the edge.
Yep.
They are thousands of years old. They have this connection to winter. And it's said multiple times, we don't really know if they come with the winter or they bring it. Exactly.
Yep.
And they were dormant for a huge period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But my question is, since they appear first, what happens when something like that comes back into the world? Maybe their return is what starts breaking down these magical barriers in the world that allows dragons to come forth.
Yes, because there's all these other examples after the dragon eggs hatched, but that comes after.
Yes,
we see them in the prologue.
Absolutely, and even before, the dragons hatch, we have Bran having these dreams. We see the direwolves appear, who clearly have this mystical connection to their own individual Stark.
Single one of them.
We talked the other day about how Ghost is born aside from the others.
Outcast.
He's the outcast, and
much
like Jon, who is the bastard and is literally an outcast, and he goes to the wall. Shaggy Dog, Rickon's wolf, is wild and untamed,
just like a little boy would be.
Just like a little boy who hasn't had the nurturement that he needs from his mother.
Exactly. Who is currently on Skagos.
Absolutely.
With a bunch of wild men.
We see, Arya's direwolf, who has to be pushed out, cast out, and goes out on her own to make her own pack of wolves later. Exactly what Arya does later, having to go out and make her own
Yep.
story with
Yep.
the Church of Black and White and the Faceless Men.
Mm-hmm.
We see Sansa's dire wolf,
Yep.
who dies early in the story, and of course we see Sansa go through this basically identity death,
Yeah.
where she is basically no longer a Stark. She doesn't go by the name Stark.
Yeah. She's a
Elaine Stone.
bastard.
Yeah, she's a
going
bastard.
by a bastard.
Absolutely. And of course, Grey Wind
In the Vale.
dies when Robb Stark dies.
Yeah.
And Catelyn even observes them at one point, shortly before Robb tells her about his will, where he makes Jon his
Yep.
successor to be king in the North.
Yep.
She observes him and says that the wolf that Robb grows as
Yeah.
gaunt and
Yeah.
fierce as his wolf.
As his wolf.
And so there's these just frankly magical connections. And of course, even after the dragons hatch, you have Melisandre's magic,
With R'hllor. And,
extremely powerful. You have the glass candles that are
Mhm.
burning again, which we don't know how long those have been burning.
yeah.
The Maesters keep that knowledge extremely tight, even
Yeah.
within their own order. We have visions from so many different characters.
Mm-hmm.
There's this feeling that this ancient magic in so many different realms and with so many different characters has been awakened.
Yeah.
And of course, where it starts is with the others and with the whites.
Yeah.
So I think the big question is, why did the eggs hatch? Right?
Right.
They aren't new, and Dany is not the first Targaryen to do a ritual.
That's true.
We even hear stories of Egg,
Yep.
who's one of the
alert.
very big spoiler alert, who's one of the stars of the Night of the Seven Kingdoms show. There's big time rumors that in Harrenhal he was actually trying Summerhall. Thank you so much. In Summerhall, he was actually trying to hatch eggs.
Yeah, and that's why it burns.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we hear of so many different Targaryens that had dreams of hatching these dragon eggs, and somehow they always ended in catastrophe.
Yeah.
That's one thing they all have in common, is they failed and they ended in catastrophe.
Yeah.
Let's look at Dany's ritual, right?
Yeah.
She did the ritual with fire and blood, first of all.
Yeah.
I mean, the words are there, right?
Yeah.
The funeral pyre where she hatched the dragons.
Yeah.
She had sacrifice and death and the dragon eggs. And it ended with 3 dragons being brought into the world.
Yeah.
We know this. But how did her ritual differ from the other rituals that came before?
Yeah, right.
Was it Dany herself? Potentially. Maybe she is just the chosen one.
Right.
But I think that's too easy of an
it's
answer.
too easy to say.
Absolutely. I don't think Dany just has this innate,
ability to
absolutely
make this kind of sacrifice.
And of course, we see her walk into the fire, and of course, so we know there's some magic surrounding her that allowed her to do this. But we don't know exactly what changed. And Dany didn't discover that these eggs were suddenly coming to life, and they didn't grow younger. They were literally fossilized eggs.
Yeah.
So something about the world or the
changed.
ritual itself, or both, changed. Absolutely. And it allowed what was impossible for generations to finally be possible again.
I feel like that's a big theme in the books as well. It's just this something that was never possible is now possible again.
I think so too.
That's
yes.
like a major theme.
And it's like
books.
this, it's almost like this turning of an age. You know what I mean? And of course we know we are 300 years from post Aegon's conquest.
Yeah.
And I think it could genuinely mean something. But the main point is maybe the return of the others. I'm not saying that the return of the others hatched the dragons themselves. They didn't hatch the dragons directly. But I think it made the world magical enough for the ritual to actually work.
It's like it triggered a balance. It's like, since they have awakened for some reason, because I have told you my theory about that, because they have sensed in some way. And now maybe this is, you know, people toying with them, if you believe that theory, with Bloodraven and all that.
Yeah.
But maybe that they sense that the fire has gone out in this world, as in
And
the
it's almost their
Targaryens,
opportunity to strike.
as in the Targaryens are gone.
Mm-hmm.
So the fire is out. So because people will say, well, the dragons have been gone for a long time at this point. Yes, but the Targaryens themselves could still represent the fire,
Yes.
because they say even in the books that they can sense like blood in a human.
Yeah.
They can feel the warmth in that.
Yes.
So maybe inside of a Targaryen, it's just amplified by 1,000-fold.
That's a really good point.
So they can sense that there's no longer this looming fire threat. So now the ice is starting to emerge back again. But because there's always like this opposite and there's always this balance in this universe.
Mm-hmm.
So it triggers that for Danny.
Yes.
But it wouldn't have worked if they stayed asleep.
I am so glad you said that because I'm thinking the exact same thing, like I said, I don't think the others themselves directly hatched the dragons. They allowed the magical conditions for the dragons to come back. I think that the ingredients for her ritual were always there.
Absolutely.
The blood and the fire and the sacrifice and of course the dragon eggs. It was all there. But we needed the others to come forward and bring this magic back into the world.
Yep.
It's almost as if the world is correcting itself,
Yeah.
that this magical threat, because there's a ton of theories about the White Walkers, whether they were created, they are a manifestation of the old gods, or just the land itself, or if they were created by the children of the forest who have this very strong connection with the earth itself.
Yep.
What if them coming forward is what allowed their natural enemy and their natural counterbalance to emerge,
To also emerge.
in the dragons?
Yes, I agree.
And I think though it's important that we bring up the counter arguments to this theory that you've written down. What do you think the counter arguments to this theory are?
Well, Quaithe literally tells Danny that dragons have brought magic back.
Absolutely. And I think that is debatably the biggest counter argument to our theory.
But Danny is the one who actually performs the ritual.
Yes.
And
yes,
why would they bring them back? Why would they bring those dragons back? And why Danny of all Targaryens either?
So that's a really good, that's a really good two-layered question.
Yeah.
I think Danny is, it took obviously the ingredients, with the blood and the fire and the sacrifice, but I think it also took the right bloodline to do it. The Targaryens have this magic of old Valyria, this innate magic in them.
Yeah.
So I think, it did require a Targaryen, but it just needed the time to be right. Magic needed to be brought back into the world, right? Because after the dragons were gone, the magic was gone.
Yes. Yes.
And so it wasn't until the White Walkers returned that Danny, being a Targaryen, having the blood of old Valyria, was able to bring these dragons forward.
Yeah.
And your other question about why would the White Walkers, why would it cause their very enemy,
yeah,
the very thing that could destroy them, to come back?
Now, I do have a little point about that, though.
Yeah.
We do see it in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they need the dragons to bring down the wall.
And that's a very good point. If George was intending that's a very good point.
Yeah, and we see it in the show, so who knows?
Yeah.
But that could be
That's actually a very good point. I hadn't actually thought about that.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Instead of like the horns that are all out there, so like maybe those don't do it. Maybe the horn doesn't really bring
Yeah.
down the wall.
Because
maybe
there is
it's-
still the question, obviously, right? Of even if the White Walkers muster 1,000,000 people,
yeah,
how do they get past the wall?
exactly.
So that's a very good point you bring up, and I really
Because
love that.
Mance doesn't believe that they can get past. A lot of people
Yeah.
at the wall and with the wildlings don't believe that they can get past the wall.
Yeah.
And like we theorize and we kind of know that when Bran the Builder like built the wall, like he infused it with like
These ancient magics and
this-
these ruins.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And they were built by like these magical beings, like with
Yeah.
the help of the giants and everything. So like maybe what we're saying is like they do need them in a way.
That's a really good point. I had really not considered that.
Yeah.
I really love that theory. The theory that I was kind of working with was that the others didn't really, they didn't intentionally bring these dragons
No.
back,
Yeah, I don't
but it
think
was
so.
it was their return that
Mhm.
brought the
Yes.
magic back, and it's almost like the world was, affecting the scales. It
Yeah.
sensed that this threat was looming, this ice magic was looming,
Yeah.
and so the earth brought forth fire
Yeah.
to combat this, and to equalize it.
It's kind of funny that the dragons in the place that they kind of originated from, like Valyria being in Essos, the
Mhm.
dragons were now hatched again in Essos, like not in old Valyria.
That's a really good
but
point
it
too.
was in Essos, and now her plan eventually is to come back to Westeros.
And it kind of goes back to this theme of the history repeats itself.
Yeah.
And we see this repeatedly with the story of Azor Ahai, right? We
Yeah.
have at least 3 different stories of how Azor Ahai came to be and what he was and what
Yeah.
he did.
Mhm.
And we see basically potentially Azor Ahai re-emerging in the shape of either Daenerys or Jon Snow or
Yeah.
both of them,
Or
and
both of
potentially
them.
somebody else.
Yep.
So I really love that you brought up that point. That is a really great point, and it adds a bunch of layers to this theory.
Yep.
I don't think we could really talk about, there being this balance of ice and fire without bringing up Jon Snow.
Yeah.
I think he has to be brought up because
Absolutely.
he is Jon Snow currently. Of course, he's been killed, but he is positioned at the center of the story
Yeah.
and at what everybody calls the end of the world,
Yeah.
right? He is at the wall. He is placed. He's very much, I think, the co-main character of this story. I think it's Daenerys and Jon Snow.
Absolutely.
And Jon Snow, we very much believe he is the son of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen.
Yeah.
He is the physical embodiment of ice and fire.
Yeah.
And I think he's the potential meeting point between these two forces, these two opposing magical forces of ice and fire.
Yeah.
And I think he will come into play big time in, balancing this entire thing, whether it's defeating the White Walkers and ending the Long Night the second time, or potentially forming another pact with the White Walkers like we see an Ancient Stark doing with the Night's Queen.
Yep, that's true.
We could dive into Jon Snow lore for hours. We will, but I think we would be doing a disservice if we didn't bring him up a little bit.
Yeah.
Essentially, I think we're faced with 3 main possible theories,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And it's that, in order, it's dragons return, they cause magic to return, and the others resurge because of this.
Yeah.
I think B is the magic returns. The others return with the magic because of this magical age returning, and then the dragons return.
Yeah.
But our theory is that the others return. They help reawaken this magical force all across the world.
Yeah.
And Dany's ritual becomes possible, and then dragons return.
Yes.
And we don't know if this is what George R. R. Martin intended.
Yeah. Will we ever?
But we do know the fact that the others returned first means we can't assume that the dragons were the beginning of this new magical age
Yeah.
because it started with the others first.
Yeah.
So I'll leave you guys with this. What if the first sign of magic returning wasn't the dragons? What if it was the others?